Welcome back to Hoopla. I'm your host, Ethan Jackson, and today I just wanted to get on here and quickly discuss the Bucks deciding to hire Doc Rivers as their new head coach. I have to say I knew there was going to be some trades that happened during this time of year, but the last thing I expected was for there to be some major coaching changes. So I'm excited. That's going to be fun to talk about. I also want to talk about the Terry Rozier trade to the Heat. I feel like that's a pretty good move, and I want to give my insight on that. And then I want to end by giving my thoughts on the recent dominance of the big man in the NBA and how it's going to impact the league going forward. So I got a pretty good episode in store for you. And without further ado, let's get straight to it. So as I'm sure most of you have heard, the Bucks fired first-year head coach Adrian Griffin and hired Doc Rivers. The news broke yesterday, but it became official earlier this morning. And so I just wanted to kind of discuss my thoughts on it. But to me, kind of this whole situation surrounding Adrian Griffin was just, it had some weird stuff going on from the beginning, like going all the way back to when he was initially hired. You know, he was hired, and I'm sure he interviewed for this job thinking, I'm going to get to coach Giannis, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton, and Brook Lopez, and whoever else was on the roster. So he wasn't necessarily, didn't know that they were going to make this move for Dame. So, and then the trade happens, and there's really no real way to tell if he was the biggest fan of it or not. So this might have caused some tension between him and Dame and him and the rest of the coaching staff, rest of the front office from the start that just hasn't got reported on yet and may at some point get reported on. And then there was, before the season started, they hired Terry Stotts, who coached Dame when Dame was in Portland and when they were in their glory years and made some pretty deep playoff runs. So it was a good look that he was coming in to try to help Adrian Griffin learn how to coach him, learn how he likes to play, where he likes his spots, the way he likes to run the offense, whatever, things like that. And then just out of nowhere, he decided to resign before the season started. So there must have been something that Coach Stott saw, or there's something that he did not like about what was going on with this team. I don't know exactly what it could have been, but it was such a weird resign, and he just kind of, it was at a very weird time right before the start of the season. So to me, that was a red flag. And then just as the season itself, all season long, there have been numerous reports of them having team meetings and the team bringing stuff to coach and letting him know that they don't really like his game plans and his defensive strategies and this and that. And there's just been, like I said, numerous reports of that throughout the season, of there being this kind of difference in viewpoint between the coach and the team, and that's just never a good thing. And then recently they hired Doc as a consultant to Adrian Griffin, which is weird in itself, because and then next thing you know, Griffin is fired and Doc is hired. So there was definitely something weird, some weird things going on and some politicking in this situation. And I have to admit that I feel bad for Adrian Griffin, because regardless of what people say about him and how he was handling the team there, whatever, he had coached this team to the second best record in the Eastern Conference. So despite all this distrust and this losing of the locker room that they say was going on, I think he can be a good coach in this league, and I hope he gets another chance at it, because this would be a little unfair for him, because, you know, he just got dealt a bad hand when he like I said, he signs on to coach Drew Holiday and Giannis and Middleton, and then they make the trade for Dame, and there's just all this pressure for a first-year head coach and unnecessary media coverage and all that kind of stuff. So I think he would have been better off if he would have been able to find his way in a situation where the team is rebuilding, starting over, kind of trying to find their culture and things like that, so that he could start to build something new and be a part of the new culture, instead of trying to step into a team that has already kind of established the culture they want to set forward, and this team was championship or bust. So that was just a lot of, like I said, unnecessary pressure on a first-year head coach. So like I said, I'm hoping the best for him. Hope he gets another shot, and I just know this was a bit unfair for him. Now let's talk about Doc. And I want to first off say that I mean this in no disrespect to Doc Rivers, but he is not the savior this team is looking for. I'm in no way saying that Doc is a bad coach, but people always talk about his resume and the success he has had in this league. So I have to ask, what success? The one championship he won with the super team Boston Celtics? I could argue that only winning one championship was a failure. Was not ever making the conference finals with the Lob City Clippers a failure? Was He had Kawhi and Paul George on the Clippers. They didn't make the conference finals. Was that a failure? He had the Sixers with Harden and Embiid, and they never did anything. Was that a failure? So, like I said, I mean, no disrespect to Doc Rivers, because there's no doubt he's a great coach and a great culture builder. But when we start talking all-time status, we talk a lot. We have to start talking about championships and playoff success. So, to me, he's a little overrated in the. I mean, he's a great coach, like I said, but some people say he's one of the greatest of all time, and this and that. But I don't really know about it, and maybe this will be his chance where he can finally prove and get over the hump and win a championship. But as far as what he needs to do to fix this team, it's obvious that he has to start on the defensive end. The offense is fine. I mean, they have the second best offensive rating in the league. There's obviously some fine tuning that I would like to see happen, and that I think he could try to fix up. Especially they need some more Dame and Giannis pick and roll is the first thing I would look at, and most people are seeing that. But then again, I can look at it and say whatever you're doing now is working. So why change the kind of system and that the other coaches have put in place? So we'll see how he decides to handle that. But how's he gonna fix this defense? And honestly, as I'm thinking about it, I honestly have no idea, because to me the issues are more personnel than it was coaching. So the issue, like I said, came with Dame and Malik Beasley not being good defenders at all. And so I'm not sure how he's just going to magically come in and all of a sudden make them good defenders. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do that. Maybe he tries to implement some type of system that could protect them and hide them a little more. But having both of them on the floor as your point of attack defenders, it's just asking for trouble. So I'm not sure what he's going to do about that. But real quick, while I'm talking about the players, I think at some point they have to take some blame and some accountability for the situation they're in. And by players, I really mean Dame and Giannis. That organization has done everything Giannis has asked and more. They, starting back at the end of the summer, they fired Coach Bud, and Giannis can say he did not want that to happen or that he didn't sign off on that, but that's hard for me to believe that they make a change that big without consulting Giannis. So he can say what he wants about that. I don't think he's telling the truth. Then they traded for Dame when he was all in the magazine articles or whatever talking about he wants to be on a championship team, and when his whole free agency was up in the air and all that kind of stuff, he was kind of begging for another star and for them to make a move, and they did that, brought in Dame. Then they hired a new coach, Adrian Griffin, fired him because clearly there's some type of issues going on in that locker room, and then they brought in Doc that I'm sure he signed off on. So there have been plenty of moves that they have made to try and appease them, and at some point they have to take some accountability for this situation. At some point, the success or failure of this team is on them, and it's not on the coaching. So, like, with all that being said, I just I feel like this will be a fresh start for the team, and I wouldn't be shocked if they kind of rattle off some a winning streak or just kind of a good stretch of basketball, especially leading into the All-Star break, just because that new energy that's going to be brought into the building just with a new coach, new system, just, the newness of when teams make a move at the deadline, much less a coaching change. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if they go on a little run right here. But the question I have to ask is what happens when they hit a rough patch? What evidence do I have to say they won't turn on Doc like some of the 76ers players did last year, and like it seems some of the Clippers teams did in the past? What tells me that this situation will be any different? Maybe they make it through the rest of the regular season with a good record, might even steal the first seed from the Celtics, and just roll through the league. You never know. But this Bucks team is championship or bust, in my opinion, and I think in their opinion too. So, and we have seen Doc lead team after team to great regular seasons, and time again, they flame out in the playoffs. So that's what I'm judging this situation on. Personally, I do not think this will work as far as the immediate this year championship. I don't think they win a championship this year if that was the measuring stick. I just think there have been too many changes occurring in this organization. Like, I have a list of it here. So you fired Coach Bud, you hired Adrian Griffin, you traded for Dame, and in the process you lost Drew Holiday, who I think was their most important player outside of Giannis. You fired Adrian Griffin, and then you brought in Doc. So I just think that's too much change in a short period of time for them to be able to put together a real championship run, especially considering how well the Celtics and the Sixers are playing, and even the Cavs, and now you even have to throw Miami into that mix with the recent move that they just made that I'll talk about in a minute. So I'm interested to see how this whole thing pans out. I think it will be pretty successful in terms of overall wins and losses, because if you look at Doc's resume that everybody talks about, he's done nothing but win. But when it comes to the playoffs, I do not think they can get it done, and I don't think this is enough to get them over the hump. So we'll see how that goes. Some other big news was the Miami Heat trading Kyle Lowry and a first-round pick to the Hornets for Terry Rozier. So the first thought that I had that came to my head was that they missed out on Dame, Drew Holiday, and the fact that the Bucks traded for Dame, Giannis wasn't going to be available, and all the other names that have came up in the rumors over the last few years. And Scary Terry is the one they end up with. That was kind of the first thought that I had. But, then I kind of took a step back and kind of thought about the trade a little more and realized that I love this move for them, and I really do, and I think it's going to help them out a lot. So Terry Rozier brings the Heat exactly what they have needed over the past few years. He gives them that other scoring option, that other shot creator that they have been missing. He is a great scorer that is capable of going for 30, 40 on any given night, and is scrappy on the defensive end. So my view of this team has drastically changed after this move, because now they added one of the most underrated guards in the league to a team that was already pretty well-rounded. So this makes them even more well-rounded than they already were. And for the ones that are hating on this trade, just remember, never doubt Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. They know what they're doing, and they see something in Terry Rozier that maybe some of us don't, but I'm never going to doubt him. I've learned my lesson already many times. So, but me personally, I like the move. I'm not just saying that because it's them. So just for some more evidence to help my point that this is a well-rounded team, I just want to take a look at their roster here. So their top players are Jimmy Butler. Obviously, there's not much to say about him. We saw what Jimmy Butler has done every year for the past few years in the playoffs. He steps up to being a top 5 player in this league when it comes to playoff time. So we know what we're going to get there. Then you have Bam, who is having a career best year and continuing to develop and expand his game to where he can now trust his little mid-range game a little more and do a little more off the dribble and just kind of becoming more dynamic of a player. Then you got Tyler Hero, who's finally healthy and has proven he can be legit. Well, I should say that he can be an all-star in this league for many years to come. Then you got the rookie Jaime Jaquez Jr., who is showing the world that a lot of teams should regret passing on him, and that he's one of the best rookies out of this class, as I've said before. Then you've got Kevin Love still, that is just a solid big man, veteran big man that just gets the job done. That's no simpler way to put it. You got Duncan Robinson, who's having a career year, having a bounce-back year from the pretty bad season he had last year, all things considered. You've got Caleb Martin still on the team. Let's not forget what he was able to do in last year's playoffs. They brought in Thomas Bryant, who's just a solid, athletic big man that does his job, can go in and not hurt you. He may not provide the most help, but he's not going to hurt you. And then you bring in Terry Rozier to this mix, who is averaging a career high in points and assists. So to me, this team is now very dangerous. Well, I guess I really shouldn't say dangerous, because I think they now belong in that conversation with the top of the East. So the Celtics, Bucks, and Sixers. Because if they put this together like I think they can, I might have a tough time. If you had asked me come that time, I would probably have a tough time picking against them when it comes playoff time against anybody in the East. So, like I said, I think they moved themselves up to another notch. So, again, just my overall thoughts on the trade. I love this move. It raises their ceiling to another level. I think Terry Rozier fits perfectly into their system, and he will be back on a stage where he can, like how he was in Boston a few years back, where he can remind everyone why they call him Scary Terry. So I'm excited to see how this pans out, and I'm glad Miami got to make a move. That way they weren't just kind of sitting at the middle of the pack and just kind of waiting until the playoffs to see if they had enough to battle these other teams. Now I think they have enough, and I can't wait to watch it. So lastly, I felt I had to talk about the recent dominance of the big man in the NBA today, and what it says about the future of the NBA and where it's headed. So over the last few days, I'm sure most of you saw there have been some pretty remarkable performances from big men across the league, and I wanted to talk about a few of them. So the big one was Joel Embiid going for 70 the other night against the Spurs. So how I found out about this, I was watching the game. I watched the first quarter. I think he had 24 in the first quarter, and then I just kind of tuned it out and started doing some homework, working on some stuff. But I still had it on the TV playing in the background. And just kind of as I was doing my work, I just kind of kept hearing his point totals go up and up, and then it got to a certain point where I put the homework down and kind of started watching again at some point in the third quarter. And I have to say this was one of the most dominant performances I've seen in my lifetime. At least the Spurs had absolutely zero answer for him, and they were completely at his mercy of whether he made shots or whether he missed shots. It's the whole saying it's a make or miss league. That was the perfect example of what they're talking about when they say that. So, Embiid just continues to make his case for the best big man in the league and really best player in the league. He's in that conversation, but the skeptics are obviously always going to say you've got to do it in the playoffs. You got to have some playoff success. But I have to admit, I subscribe to that notion. I usually judge players based on how they perform in the playoffs, but I'm also able to realize and I'm aware enough that he's just had some bad luck in terms of having some kind of injury that's preventing him from being his fully himself in these last few years of playoffs. So it's no excuse. Everybody's usually got something going on, but the players that are able to make a finals run and a championship run, usually they stay pretty injury free throughout the whole time, like Jokic and Murray and them did last year. I'm sure they had some nagging injuries and stuff, but Embiid has had some pretty serious knee issues and stuff like that he's had to get looked at after the season is over. So I'm hoping he can get some better luck this year and continue his dominance and kind of make his case as the best big man in this league. So, but as far as this game, the most impressive part, in my opinion, was that he did this while only shooting 2 threes, one of which he made. So he was 1 for 2 from the 3-point line. So that means that he scored all 2-point field goals and free throws. He shot 41 field goal attempts and 23 free throws, which means he probably got up somewhere around 50 shots, which is crazy in and of itself that he had the stamina and the ability to even get up 50 decent looks and much less shoot them at the clip that he shot them at. So, like I said, that was one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen, and I'm glad that I did see it, that I put my homework down and decided to watch it. So I don't know if we'll see another one like that for the rest of this year. Probably won't see another performance like that for the rest of a couple years. So that was pretty impressive, I have to say. The other performance was actually on that same night, and Cat went for 62. Karl Anthony Towns went for 62 points. I didn't get to watch any of the first half of this one because I was watching other games. Obviously, I was watching the Sixers game, but at some point I got a notification on my phone that said he had 44 at halftime. And I kind of thought to myself, like, he's going to outscore Embiid. Embiid just had media going crazy and everybody going crazy because he scored 70. And here Karl Anthony Towns is about to break that record a couple hours later. So I kind of tuned in at some point in the third. And then when he had 58 through 3 quarters, I really kind of thought, like, he's gonna try to do everything he can to get over 70 points. But then, he slowed down. Some things happened. At one point, he got benched in the fourth quarter. And he only scored 4 points in the fourth, and they actually lost the game. They blew a lead and lost the game in which he went for 62 points, 58 in 3 quarters. That's shouldn't happen, and I'm with their coach, Coach Finch, on why it did happen. I noticed it watching him. They got so caught up in trying to let him have this legendary night that they pretty much stopped playing basketball and let it become the Cat show. Like in the late third, when I kind of turned it on and early, it led into the fourth quarter, it was pretty ugly to watch. I have to admit, it was literally throw the ball to Cat, stand there, watch him try to make something happen on 2 or 3 defenders, and throw up some kind of shot that wasn't a good shot. Hope he gets fouled, whatever, and it wasn't happening, and it got pretty ugly there. And I think that's why Coach. It could have been for fatigue reasons, but I think Coach honestly saw that lead evaporating and was like, they're not going to do it themselves. As he called it, it was immature basketball. They're going to keep trying to get him points. So I got to take Cat out myself to keep them from doing that. So I think that's the reason he got benched late in that game. But like I said, I was a little disappointed. Not even a little. I was disappointed of the ending of his performance just because of the potential it had to be a legendary night. But that first half, after going back and watching the highlights of it and stuff, that was pretty spectacular, and he put on a virtuoso in that first half. Then there's some other performances that have been pretty good. Is Jokic over the last 3 games is quietly averaging 35, 12, and 9 while shooting almost 70% from the field. He is as I've said before on here, I actually think I've said it on here before, he's playing better basketball than he ever has personally, and playing just as good as anyone else in the league individually. So he still, in my opinion, is the best player in this league, and until somebody snatches it from him come playoff time, I don't think that title will ever move or he'll ever lose that crown. And like I said, until somebody snatches the crown from him. And then obviously there was Wemby the other night against Embiid, scored 33 in 28 minutes. And obviously it got way overshadowed by Embiid scoring 70, but he showed up. They were advertising it, and like on NBA Rivals Week, whatever, they were advertising Embiid versus Wemby for the first time, this and that or whatever, and he showed up. I have to give him his props. He showed up and did his thing. He just got outshined by Embiid going for 70 points. So, but I just wanted to give him his props, and he was another big that has been pretty dominant. And then obviously there's Giannis is doing his thing over the last few weeks, but the big man, the center position, the power forward, whatever, the big man, as I call it, is just as prevalent and more dominant than ever at the top of it, at least. Old heads will argue that because the position is so different now and the play styles are different, that it's not the same, it's not as dominant. But the old school back to the basket big man is pretty much gone, and I don't know if we'll ever see it again. The days of dumping it off the Shaq and letting him bully his way to the basket and dunk on somebody or shoot a little right hook, those are over. The days of giving it to Hakeem on the block and letting him put on a post-work, footwork masterclass are over. These bigs are just as dominant, but they are doing it in totally different ways, and they are all unique. Back then you had there was some uniqueness between Hakeem and Karl Malone and Barkley and things like this, but these players are completely different players. And like, for example, I'll go through a bunch of them. Embiid, he does a lot of his work from the free throw line and mid-post area. He likes to catch it, face up, and kind of go to work. He puts on a masterclass in the sense that he shows great footwork. He shows incredible patience, waiting on the double teams to either come or waiting it out to see if it's a fake double team. He shows some patience, strength, and a little ball handling every now and then. He shows incredible touch on his jumpers. So that's the way he likes to work and how he likes to operate. Jokic, he really does his business all over the floor. He is the hub of that offense, and everything runs through him. The pick and rolls, the DHOs, the down screens, the off-ball screens, pretty much everything runs through him. And he dominates that way by methodically picking defenses apart. He can operate on the low block. He can be back to the basket. He can work from the free throw line, the mid-post. You can pull him out to the three-point line. He can push the ball in transition. Just like I said, he dominates all over the floor, and I didn't even mention his passing ability, his playmaking ability, which is probably one of his biggest strengths. So he's unique in that way. And then you've got Karl-Anthony Towns, who is pretty much an outside-in big at this point. He is more of a three-point shooter than he is anything else. He also likes to be in the mid-post, mid-range area and do some stuff off the dribble. But like I said, he's more of an outside-in three-point threat, which is different than the other dominant bigs in this league. And you've got Giannis, who is just a freight train, who just kind of runs through anyone in his way to get to the rim. He is the most physically imposing big in the league right now, probably since Shaq. He's the most, like I said, physically imposing. He likes to have the ball in his hands and kind of do his stuff off the dribble, whereas Shaq was back to the basket. But they are both kind of, I'm not comparing them in any way, but as far as today's league, he is the most physically imposing. But he also can do some stuff off the ball. He's a good pick and roll roller and good lob threat, good in transition. So he does things in that way, dominates the paint in that way. Then you've got Wemby, who's just a complete freak and unicorn that will make an impact in this league for many years to come and kind of pave his own way as to how we remember him and how he's viewed as a big man in this league. So, like I said, the big man is more prominent than ever in this league, and it's affecting how teams are building their rosters and the types of players that we see in the league for the most part. The days of being a guard-led team and that team winning a championship, or the guard being a best player on a championship team, those days are coming to an end, in my opinion, unless your name is Steph Curry, which shows just how great he is and how impressive it is that he was able to win as many championships as he has in this league that we're headed towards. But it's the sport of basketball, and especially the NBA has a way of rewarding size most of the time. So that's why we are seeing teams try to sign as many big athletic wings is the phrase they like to use. It's the game's moving more and more towards positionless basketball, which is something that the Warriors started obviously when they started their run, but they were able to do it because of their ability to play small, and the matchup was against the Cavs, who didn't really have a dominant big man. So they were able to play that game of we're going to go small and spread you out, and your big ain't going to be able to guard us on defense. Now, granted, Moscow was averaging 20 and 10 on them, but the good of their offense outweighed their defense. So teams are wanting to follow this. They want to be positionless just like them, but they want to be big at the same time because there are so many dominant bigs. They want their players to be 6'8" and up and be able to shoot, dribble, pass, and do everything on the basketball floor. So this is, like I said, all this is kind of stemming from the Warriors' runs and the way the game has spread out and changed. But now with the reemergence of dominant bigs that can do a little bit of everything, the league is moving back to having more size on the floor just across the board, from point guard all the way to center. Teams want more size. So it's definitely something that will be interesting to watch over the next 5 years or so, because the NBA kind of always goes in cycles, and it will be cool to see like whether a player comes along at some point or a team forms, because sometimes it can be a team that reinvents the wheel to an extent and kind of moves things away from the bigs and whatever. I don't know exactly what it would take, but like I said, for the next 5 years or so, this league is going to belong to bigger players like Jokic, like Giannis, like Embiid, like Wemby, and even taller players like Jason Tatum and Luka, bigger, taller players like that. So this trend will affect drafts, it'll affect trades, it'll affect just roster construction as a whole, and everything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see the trends of this league, and kind of sitting around waiting on that next player that comes along, like the MJ when he reinvented the game, like LeBron when we started kind of falling in love with this idea of a point forward and big guards and stuff like that. Then Steph came along that really revolutionized the whole game of basketball, and now you have players like Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid that are doing the same thing. And right now it's kind of up in the air as to who is going to emerge as the one above all those three. It may be like a Magic and Bird situation where they kind of changed the way the game was played collectively, but as the NBA goes, somebody will come along that will change this. And like I said, I'm going to be watching over the next few years to see if that happens and what player is capable of doing that. But man, this NBA, man, the NBA is fun times. It's never ending with the National Basketball Association. There's always something to talk about. I have to say I'm really enjoying doing this show. I'm getting more comfortable as I put more episodes out. I hope that's showing up and that you can see I'm getting better and that you can see where I'm improving. So I don't know when the next episode will be. Right now I said it was going to be every 2 weeks, but it's been every week for the last 3 weeks. So maybe I can keep that up. I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be some more trades over the next week or so. There's going to be some more news. Teams are going to get hot, get cold, whatever. So like I said, there's always something to talk about in this league. But that's going to do it for this episode. Before I go, I have to ask you to hit that like and subscribe button. I've been your host, Ethan Jackson. Thanks for tuning in to Hoopla. Until next time.